So last week, we looked at some tough topics. We looked at adultery and divorce and a biblical perspective on those things, and try to take the biblical perspective and then apply it to life and all the different contexts and difficulties and so forth and what those things mean. And this week, we're going to jump into oaths, retaliation, and enemies. So it doesn't get too much easier, but it's good stuff. Remember, for context's sake, the Sermon on the Mount is Jesus speaking to his disciples, and he's explaining to them kingdom values, right? And so in the beginning, he talks about where blessedness lies, or literally happiness. Happy is the person that. Blessed is the person that, right? So in our world, it's blessed is the person that conquers and gets what they want, right? And Jesus says, in my kingdom, the blessed person is the merciful one. Or the blessed person is the meek one, the one that doesn't exercise their power and authority for personal gain. And in fact, the person that is meek, they get the rightful claim to the earth, unlike the person that uses their clout and money and power to get it. After that is what we've jumped into now, is where he's each section or each part, as he's speaking to his disciples, it begins with, "You have heard it said." And most of them are just direct quotes out of Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy, just direct quotes from the law. And later, the last one we'll read today with enemies, it's actually a quote. He mixes a quote with Deuteronomy and a quote that is from the Pharisees that's not true. But in these cases, he's saying, look, this is the law that was given to Israel. Remember, in our government, right, it's a representative democracy. So we vote for people that represent us in the government, right? And so we vote for people that will vote for us. That's how our government works. So they didn't have that. They had a theocracy. So yeah, you had priests and so forth, but the country was supposed to be led by God. And later on that changed and became led by a king. And God told them, you want a king? I'll give you a king. It's not going to work out for you at all. But I'll do it if you want it. And they said, give us a king like the other nations. And so he gave them a king. And as he said, it didn't work out for them. So in this case, Jesus is taking pieces from the law, and he's expounding what his kingdom value is. So it's not just the law meant this. It's more of, in my kingdom, it's this. The law governed an earthly nation. And that's really important to keep into context. We'll even read about 3 excerpts from the law today out of one of the things he quotes. Not only was it a law about washing and how sacrifice would blot out sin and these type of things, but it was also just civil law, how you deal with murder, how you deal with theft, how you deal with all these different things that could occur. And so Jesus is saying, look, you've heard it that this is how you deal with those things, but I'm telling you, in my kingdom, this is how you deal with them. The reason I'm making a differentiation, or really kind of emphasizing that differentiation this morning, is that we're going to talk about some of the verses that people, they kind of get used in 2 extremes oftentimes. One extreme is 100% literal, and you always have to do these things. 2, the other extreme is, it really doesn't matter, it's not for our time, and we can kind of do whatever we want. So we're going to try to look at, okay, what is Jesus saying? How does it apply to them? How does it apply to us? And how do we walk in it righteously? So it says here in chapter 5 and verse 33, in oaths, again, you have heard it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. So that's a direct quote out of Leviticus. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no, and anything beyond this becomes from the evil one. Now, this might be a little bit out of context for us because we don't see too many oaths, right? So an oath, to take an oath, is the idea that I invoke something beyond myself to give power, or something external to give power to my word, right? So in the examples he uses, the temple, or heaven, the temple, I forgot them already. Heaven, temple, God's throne or the earth, the foot, these type of things, or Jerusalem. Now, I'd be willing to bet that none of us have ever been like, by Jerusalem, I will come to church today, or something like that. But the idea is invoking something and to make it practical, because I don't know about you, be like, what does that even mean? What would it even mean to be like, by my own head, I will do this thing? Or what would it even mean to be like, by God's throne, I will do this? It sounds like something from a Marvel movie or something. But it's just, the whole idea is that if I don't do this, so if I were to swear, say, by the throne of God, what I'm saying is, if I am saying untruth, or if I am wrong, or if I don't do this, then may I be alienated from either the power or the favor of this thing over here. So if I say I'm swearing by God's throne, what I'm saying is, may I be alienated or may I be judged by God's throne if I don't do this thing or if this thing is untrue. Does that make sense? So we kind of do it in casual conversation, right? So if you're like, on the group chat, which hopefully we don't do because group chats are bad, right? No group chats. And don't reply on them, for crying out loud. Stop replying on group chats. That's the application you get from today. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just like you're in the group chat with the friends or whatever, and then it's just like, and you're like, no, I'm serious. You're talking, you're in a conversation, it's Sunday lunch, you're at your house, and you're telling something you observed, at the roundabout in a story or something, and you go like, no, I'm serious. That's kind of like what we would do. That's probably as closest as we get to an oath. Or if you go to, say, the court, and you're supposed to be a witness, and they ask you to swear that you'll tell the truth, the whole truth, or affirm it now because Christians said, no, we don't want to swear because the Scripture says don't swear. So they say, well, you affirm that you're going to tell the truth and so forth. That's what Jesus is addressing. So this was really big among the Pharisees. The Pharisees were really big about saying, by the throne of God, by Jerusalem, this is true, or I'm going to do this, and if it's not, then let me be accursed by those things. They were known for using those type of phrases, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they were known for breaking their oaths and usually finding some way to kind of get out of it. Oh, I didn't name God, or I didn't do this, that kind of a thing. But Jesus, he breaks it down to one final thing. He says, you know what? Your yes should be enough, or your no should be enough, right? Verse 37, all you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Now, if we were to go back and read in Leviticus, the quote that he makes, the quote out of Leviticus has to do with making an oath to God or an oath before God. So this is not casual conversation. In other words, Jesus is not saying if you answer more than yes or no to any question, that's from Satan. So if someone says, hey, do you want to come over for barbecue? And you're like, yes, I love barbecue. Well, that's from Satan. You should have just said yes. Right? No, that's crazy. Or if you're like, man, I absolutely, I'm so excited about that. You wouldn't believe how excited I am about this. That's not what he's saying. He's like, well, you should have just said yes. What he's making a point to that when you are trying to communicate to someone a truth, that you really just need to communicate the truth. And the issue is that if you have to convince people, in other words, that if you try to go to your family members or you try to go to your coworkers or the people that you fellowship with at a church or something like that, if you have to go to them and go, guys, no, for real, I'm not kidding, this really happened, I'm serious. Oh, by Odin's beard, whatever you want to like mix in there and try to say some oath, right? He's saying that's evil. It's evil because something's happened and you're not trustworthy. If you have to say more than yes or no, if you have to say more than this happened, then you need to ask yourself, why do I have to say more than that? If I go to my family and I say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry I'm late. I was delayed at work. And they're like, were you though? You have to ask yourself, why do they think that? And so trust is an odd thing. And really the core issue that Jesus is getting at hand here is, number one, your word should be it. And if it's not it, don't try to manipulate people with extra oaths or extra additives to your word. Does that make sense? It's a really simple idea. And just to say something about trust is always earned, right? Yes, I'll answer that. Yes, trust is always earned. Like, for example, if you go to Starbucks, right? I don't know about you, but if I go to Starbucks, which I don't very often because it's crazy expensive, but if I do, I don't like go to Starbucks and then like put my laptop on the table to study, and then put my wallet on the table, put my keys on the table, and then go up and order my drink, then go use the restroom, and then come back to the table, right? Do any of us do that? No. Why? Because I don't know any of these people. I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're going to steal something. I don't want to lose the church's laptop, all these type of things. Now, if I was sitting with my wife at Starbucks, and then I was like, I need to use the restroom, and I closed my laptop and put it in my bag and put my wallet in my pocket, and you know what I mean? And I put my backpack on and I go into the restroom, that would be weird, right? You would look at that and go, there's a problem there. Because I know her and I trust her, right? So the reality is I don't know those people, so I don't trust those people. It's not that I go, oh, everyone who goes to Starbucks is a criminal. That's probably not true at all. But the reality is trust comes with knowledge, experiential knowledge, right? So here's the thing. In any relationship, if someone doesn't trust you, it's not moral to demand trust from them. This is important, especially if you've broken it. And what I see happen in a lot of marriages, and what I see happen in general, is somebody breaks trust, and then after a week goes by, they kind of get this well, why don't you trust me yet? And that's not okay. We need to develop trust with people. How do you develop trust with people? By saying yes and saying no and meaning it, right? You develop trust by saying what you're going to do and doing what you say. That's how you develop it. There's no other way. Have you ever tried to just trust someone? Have you just been like, okay, you know what? Now I'm going to trust. Does it work? No, it creates anxiety, right? Because then and condemnation, because you're like, well, I really want to trust them, but no, I can't. I feel like I have to. And then if you have someone pressuring you for it, you need to trust me because it just creates this big, terrible situation, doesn't it? So if you've broken trust, you earn it back. That's an important idea. You earn it back. And if you have had your trust broken, be open to let someone earn it back. Right? That's an important idea, being open to let people earn trust back. So this whole first part here, again, it's probably a little bit outside of our experience with the formal oath thing, but what is in our experience is knowing, and it's a kingdom value, that you should be a person and I should be a person that if we say yes, we mean yes, and we do what we say we would do. If we say no, we mean no, and we don't do what we said we would do. Or we wouldn't do, I should say. And that's really what he's talking about there. And he says, look, anything beyond that, if you have to do more than that, that's from the evil one. It's literally is, that's the literal translation, the one who is evil. So it comes out of, and it's an article, definitive article, it's the idea that this is something that Satan does. Satan tries to manipulate with more words. Satan tries to manipulate by convincing these things. Whereas for us, in his kingdom, we're just people that say yeah, or we say no, and we live by it.